Hey YouTube, it's your boy Widgie here, coming at you with some more strategy games with AoE 3DE, and today this is my first ever sort of beginner's guide to the game. So just a bit of background, I've got about 150 hours on the definitive. I played the original bit when I was younger but not really competitive, and this is going to be 5 tips to outline which you'll be able to use across all different civilizations. It's just foundational knowledge for you, and it's just a good idea to know the sort of the first time you start playing the game against AI or other players. So, and there will be an optional 6th one as well, depending on your skill level. So I hope you guys really enjoy this. You guys know what to do to support the channel. You guys have been absolutely awesome as always. So without further ado, let's get into number 1. So tip number 1 is hotkey the town centre and keep making villagers. So you've got to make sure that throughout the game you're making villagers constantly. That is the aim, to get better economy and hence a bigger army and destroy opponent. So all you need to do is simply select your town centre and then go ahead and press down control and then select a number key, whichever you prefer. I select number 4 or 5, you can do whatever you like. And then all you need to do is double tap that key and it will get you straight to the town centre and you're ready to go to make those villagers. Quite simple. Tip number 2 is control group your scout and your armies later on in the game. So as I mentioned in tip number 1, you want to hotkey your town centre so you can keep making villagers, and then you also at the start of the game you want to hotkey the scout, get him in another number, and then you can keep double clicking to that number and you're constantly moving him around, exploring your vicinity and also gathering treasures that have a small amount of guardians on them, because you do not want to lose your scout early on in the game. And as you start making units, you can also hotkey them, and it makes it a lot easier because if you're under attack or if you're in a battle, you can quickly double tap and you can go straight to them. Tip number 3 is, once again, hotkeying again, but it's hotkeying your idle villager button. So throughout the game there will be a little banner or button on the top left of your screen that will pop up when a villager isn't doing anything. So it's just standing around, not building, not gathering resources. And what you can do is you can use your mouse just to go straight over to there and click on it. Or what you can do, which is a lot easier, is create a hotkey for your idle villager. So I have mine on spacebar, but it's entirely up to you. And the best thing that you can do with that as well is if you hold down the shift and then you click your hotkey for the idle villager, it will select all of the idle villagers at once, which means you don't have to keep cycle through them, and it can just be a lot quicker for you. Tip number 4 is use your starting villagers to gather crates first. So it's kind of obvious really, because you'll see that there'll be some crates of resources around your town centre anyway. But what you can do is you can use one of those villagers to quickly take down the nearest hunt. So the nearest animal that you're going to use to gather food, you can quickly shoot it down, because at the start of the game they will not run away. There's a brief period of time that the hunts will not actually run away from you, so it's sort of recommended to do that as well. So okay, moving on to tip number 5, and it's to do with the hunts, and it's luring the hunts. So this is a little bit more technical, slightly more advanced I would say, not necessarily foundational knowledge, but I think it's something that you should definitely get used to, and it's something that I've had to get used to, and I'm still sort of a bit rusty with it. But what you should do is every 11 seconds the hunts will reset, so they will start to run away again the minute you shoot one of them. So the whole herd will start to run away. So what you need to do is every 11 seconds, if you can try and remember that, but pretty much every sort of 11 seconds you need to think to yourself, right, I need to use one of my villagers to shoot that hunt towards the town centre. And the reason you want to do that is because then your villagers are a lot closer to your town centre, and if there are any enemies or cavalry that try and raid you and potentially attack your villages, you can quickly garrison them into your town centre. So that's kind of a sort of a more slightly advanced tip, but if you can try and learn that at a foundational level first, then you'll be really good at it. So I really recommend that you give that a go. Okay, so for the final tip number 6, which is optional, but as I say, I still think you should really consider it, is shift queuing. So shift commanding your units, especially your villagers. So this is a good way to sort of alleviate the idle villager count, which is basically, for example, let's say I wanted to build a house with one of my villagers and then I wanted them to move on to wood, or I wanted them to move on to food. All you would do is you would make sure that you shift click to build the house, and then you shift click while still holding down the shift key. You then shift and then right click on wherever they need to go to, whether it's wood, whether it's food, gold, or whether they they want to move. You can also do this for building multiple buildings as well. So you can select a collection of villagers, 2 or 3 let's say, and you want them to build multiple houses or military buildings. All you need to do is just make sure that you keep that shift key held down whenever you're doing anything, and that will queue up all of the commands, and it just keeps them active. And it's very, very good also to use it for your explorer as well. So if you want your explorer to move around the map but you don't want to have to keep going to him and constantly moving him around, you can just hold shift down and right click in the place you want him to go, and he will move around to there as well. So shift queuing is very, very important, and I suggest you get good at that as well. So that's pretty much it really. So the majority of the stuff there is just hotkeying and control grouping and luring and making sure that you're scouting and stuff like that. They're basically the fundamentals that I suggest you sort of learn. I mean, there are obviously, you know, more experienced players that don't use as many hotkeys or control groups, but I just find, you know, it a lot easier to do, and especially if you start early on, you can really get that knowledge and you can really practice, and it will just be like muscle memory. You'll really, really get used to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you think I've missed any of the tips out, please let me know down below in the comments. If you don't agree with some of the tips I've given, please let me know. I'd love to know what your 5 beginner tips would be to a new player. As I say, you guys know what to do to support the channel. You can catch me streaming on Twitch at Witchy1. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and I shall see you in the next video. Take care.